as we're living our lives. We're relating to the voice as if it's us, and we follow everything that it says because we believe that it's telling us the truth, right? That's the height of stupidity and the height of ignorance, right? Just consider this. A thought is an interpretation of what's occurring, yes? A thought is an interpretation of what's occurring. And that interpretation of what's occurring is based on your conditioning, based on your individual history. Everything you've ever experienced, right, is what you're using to interpret what's happening. And it produces thoughts based on your conditioning, right? And right now, each person in this room has a different thought process going on, right? And so your conditioning is different. Each person has a different conditioning, a different history, a different childhood, different parents. Maybe you were born in a different country even. And all of this creates the conditioning, and that produces the thoughts. And your thoughts are different from the person next to you. So how do we know what's true? If there are 16 people here, and there's 16 worlds, there's 16 worlds here. If there are a billion people on the planet, there are a billion worlds, because everybody's living in a different world that's being generated by their thought process. And here's what I mean by the height of stupidity, and every one of those individuals thinks that their thought process is the right one. Their thought process is the truth. You don't question your thoughts, and this is how we ended up in the situation we're in right now as human beings. This is how wars occur. This is how divorces happen. This is how conflict occurs, right? Because you consider your thoughts to be the truth, I consider my thoughts to be the truth, and when we're in conflict, somebody's got to be right, and the other person's got to be wrong, right? So we're living our life like this all the time, and it does not work. It leaves us stressed out. It leaves us in conflict. It creates a very lucrative career for lawyers. It kills our body off, right? The stress is killing us. The stress is hurting your body. The energy that's being burned up all the time and being wasted is a real issue, because that's energy you don't have. You end up being tired. You end up getting sick. You end up being psychologically and emotionally disturbed. So I'm a psychologist, and one of the reasons that I teach meditation is because I consider it to be an essential tool for somebody who's interested in well-being. Richie Davidson, a neuroscientist, studied meditators, put them in CAT scans and scanned their brains. These are people who meditated for decades, right? Who really have gotten to the point where their meditation is a powerful tool. And what he found out is these people's brains were different than most other people's brains. The structure of their brain was different, and the way their brain processed information was different than most other people. And these people experience a kind of tranquility. If you look at them, how they behave and how they carry their body and how they move and how they speak and everything, there's a certain kind of groundedness about them. There's a certain kind of tranquility about them. They're not easily disturbed. Not much bothers them. They're more resilient than most other people. So we can say that there is a possibility of well-being. There's a possibility of physical health, mental health that comes along with this practice. And if you do it every day consistently, I assert that if you do this every day the way it's meant to be done consistently, you are involved in a psychotherapeutic process. Because as you become more aware and awake and you come out of the dream state, you come out of dreaming. What do I mean by that? If you live your life as a thought process, you're dreaming. Because the thought process is constantly interpreting reality. It's not seeing reality as it is, it's interpreting reality based on your past experience, right? So you're living in a dream world. This is what they say in the East, and that's why they say waking up is what's important. Waking up means come out of that dream. Start to be more here in the world. If you start to be more here in the world, you might start to experience what it's like to be alive, instead of depressed, or instead of anxious, or instead of confused, or instead of full of conflict. You might actually be able to settle down and be present in your own life in a way where you can begin to experience what life actually is. Most people don't experience what life actually is. They experience an interpretation of life that's fear-based. It's fear-based. Because the nervous system for most human beings is out of balance. The asympathetic and sympathetic nervous system is out of balance. It's out of balance in the direction of being afraid all the time because you're afraid that a threat is going to happen. It's a way that the brain and the mind have come up with to ensure your survival, right? Which is good because the physical body needs to survive or you're not going to be here anymore. The problem with it is the brain and the mind are like a computer and a computer program. They're not awake and alive. They don't know the difference. The brain and the mind doesn't know the difference between what's actually real and what's not real. So it will work to survive the body. That's not a problem. But a large percentage of the energy being used in the brain and the mind is to survive the personality, not just the body. And the way the personality survives in the world is to avoid being wrong. You know, being wrong to the personality is like dying, you know. You ever notice if you're in an exchange with another person and you start feeling like they're making you wrong, you know, how it starts to upset the system? You know, you start to get into this fight or flight mode, right? You start making them wrong for making you wrong, like that, right? So that's how the personality survives. It survives by avoiding threats, being right when it comes to relationships with other people, dominating and avoiding domination, being in control and avoiding losing control. This is the life of the personality, right? And so the brain and the mind are constantly perceiving everything that's going on as a potential threat, right? And so we live life with this low-grade concern all the time. You know, you wake up in the morning concerned about the day, you know, concerned about what's going to happen today, you know, on the job, concerned about your body, concerned about your relationships, concerned about the future, concerned about the past, concerned about money, concerned about sex, concerned about food, right? So you have all these concerns playing all the time, and you're experiencing this low-level apprehension all day long about concern, and it makes your body tense, and it causes you to like figure out how to get through this goddamn day. That's a human life. Not a party, right? And this goes on for day after day, year after year, facing all the challenges that are going on. You watch the news and it makes you crazier, right? Because you feel threatened by what's happening, because the news is a collective reflection of your own mind. The news is a collective reflection of your own mind, meaning that they're going to tell you what there is to be afraid of, right? So you look at the news, you know, and it's like, and not only is it telling you what to be afraid of, but it's urgent. You ever notice that when you listen to the news? Yeah. Breaking news. All news is breaking news, right? And if you think that's bad, whoa, how about this, right? That's the news. And we're fascinated by it, you know, we're fascinated by it without realizing it's a sadistic form of entertainment. It's a sadistic form of entertainment. And it's feeding the nervous system you have in a bad way. It's giving it more reasons to be upset and afraid, right? So life is about making it through the day, getting home at night, and doing whatever you can to try and get this system to stand down so you can get some sleep. That's not a very pleasant experience for a human life. What meditation offers and what these teachings offer us is a whole new possibility, a whole different possibility. A possibility of waking up so that you come out of this nerve-wracking thought process that's going on all the time and learn to be present in the world. And as you continue to do that, you're retraining your mind. The mind starts to relearn about life and about you and about the world. So we now know about neuroplasticity. The brain is neuroplastic. The brain changes all the time. The brain is a learning organism, and it's using your experience to try and understand the world and understand what's real, right? So it can function. So if you get out of your thought process and you start being present in the world where you can see that there's nothing coming after you, nobody's chasing you with a knife, where you can see that, then the brain starts to change and starts to relax, starts to stand down, because it's realizing now, oh, now the information it's getting is that there's nothing to be afraid of, so it can relax. And if you keep practicing staying aware of what's actually going on instead of this threatened thought process that's based on conditioning and survival, then your life can start to be a different life. Your brain will change, just like they found out in the research, and you'll start to experience more of a quiet state in your brain, in your mind will start to be more of a quiet place, so that you can enjoy life and begin to experience life the way it actually is instead of this scary interpretation that most people make of life. And then you discover some interesting things, like life is not a problem. Life is not a problem. You know, the problem that occurs in life is that the way we relate to it is that it should be different than it is. That's where the problem gets created. Right? The way we relate to life, the way we relate to ourselves, the way we relate to other people, the way we relate to the world is that it should be different than the way it's occurring most of the time. And so we spend most of our time upset because our expectations aren't being met. So when you start to wake up, when you start to actually be there and see it as it is, you begin to learn about life and you begin to understand that life is not a problem. Life happens perfectly all the time. The problem is when you're rejecting the way it is or you're resisting the way it is because it shouldn't be that way. It should be different. You should be comfortable all the time. That's stupid. That's not realistic. Nobody's comfortable all the time. Being in the world and having a relationship with life means that you're on a roller coaster ride. It's an adventure. It's unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen. And then at the end of life, there are these realities that we must all face, right? The things that are going to happen to all of us. We're all going to age, we're all going to get sick, and we're all going to die. So is there experience possible beyond that? Is there an experience possible that doesn't end up so bad as that, as the typical human life? And the answer to that is yes. There's a possibility that becomes available through this practice and through these teachings where you can literally come out of that mess and start to enjoy and celebrate the experience of being alive. So that when this body dies and this life comes to an end, you will have been here and actually experienced what it's like to be a human being. And if you get free from the mental state early enough, your life can really be a rest in peace before the end. You can rest in peace today, not later. You can experience tranquility now, not later. And your ability to deal with life will be enhanced. You'll be more effective because you'll be there seeing what's actually happening instead of an interpretation of it. You can actually start being with people instead of your interpretation of the people that you're with. Resilience will start to occur. They found out through the research that people who practice meditation consistently are much more resilient. What does that mean? It means when something happens, right, that is intense or threatening or disturbing or upsetting, which will happen, right? That's life. That after it happens, that you're able to go back to a baseline of tranquility and being relaxed very quickly. Whereas the teaching tells us, the teachers tell us, this is something that you have to practice like brushing your teeth, and you have to do it. You have to learn to do it for at least a certain period of time to get the effect that it will provide to you. And if you do that, you know, at some point the fruit will appear. The proof that this works is that at some point, if you practice this consistently in time, at some point you'll start to notice the difference it's making, that you're unexpectedly happy, right? That you're spontaneously happy without any reason to be happy. And that's because you're discovering your true nature. Your true nature is happy. Your true nature is not a physical body. Your true nature is not a personality. The personality is a program that's playing in your mind. But we relate to the idea of being a personality as if we're really that personality. And we're giving that our attention all the time. We're being that personality all day long, which means we're giving our attention to the life of that personality and the way that personality thinks and feels and acts and so forth. And while you're doing that, you're ignoring your true nature. That's called ignorance. The word ignorance is, the root of the word ignorance is ignoring. You're ignoring your true nature. You're actually ignoring reality as well. So through practicing this and studying the teachings, you can begin to become aware of the fact that your true nature is not a physical body, it's not a mental state, it's not an emotional experience, it's not a personality, it's the awareness that's behind all of that. That your true nature is awareness itself. The baby, before the baby gets language and before the baby learns to be a person, it's living in a natural state. It's present to life. It's not interpreting anything because it doesn't have language to do that. It's not thinking. It doesn't have the ability to do that yet. So it's just there with what's happening. And it's a beautiful thing to watch, right? A baby's a beautiful thing to watch because they're immediately responsive to what's happening. If their diaper's dirty, they cry. If they're hungry, they cry. When their diaper's dry and they're not hungry, they smile. And they enjoy the experience. And if you watch the way they're being in the world, they don't have words for any of this stuff. So everything is always interesting and exciting. They're living in an adventure, an immediate responsive adventure. And then they learn their name. And then somebody says, no, you're that physical body, and this is your name, and this is what you're good at, and this is what you're bad at. And you're an American, and so that means this. And then this natural state gradually, gets lost. It's still there, but it's in the background now, and the attention is being given to this mental state and this thought process, and that's the human life. So by practicing meditation, you can begin to calm the mind and relax the body and study the teachings, which will give you an idea how to proceed when you're relaxed. You start paying attention to what? To the insane way that you behave and the insane patterns that come up and play out. And you begin to see that your behavior, the way you behave, the way you act, is directly related to the way you see things. This is very important to understand. Your behavior is directly related to how things occur for you. And once you understand that, that's one of the things you get from the teachings. Once you understand that, then you can start seeing that the way you're acting, the way you're behaving is a function of how things occur for you. So if your husband or your wife occurs to you to be a pain in the ass, if your children occur to you to be annoying, right? If life appears to you to be a hassle, a burden, a disturbing experience, right? Then your behavior will be consistent with that. And you can begin to watch that happening, and you can begin to realize, wait a minute, if that's the case, then maybe what has to happen is I need to change the way I see things. I need to change the way things are occurring for me. Well, how do I do that? Well, the way you do that is change who you are, change who you're being. A personality is a fearful process. To be a personality is a fearful process, right? It's consuming a lot of energy, right? But if you practice meditation and you relax the body and calm the mind and gradually start to come out of that because you're taking your attention away from it, you're losing interest in being that personality. If you gradually remove your attention from that system will start to get weak. And as it starts to get weak, the natural reality of who you are starts to shine. You start to be able to pay attention to the truth of yourself, which is the awareness itself. And when you do that, you discover that this awareness is happy. This awareness is just happy to exist. It doesn't need anything. It doesn't want anything. It's not a male or a female. It doesn't have an age. It's not physical. It's not coming from anywhere. It's not going from anywhere. It's not going anywhere. It only exists in the present moment. It has no form. It has no shape. It's very interesting. Your true nature, our true nature is very interesting. I highly recommend that you study it, right? If you study it, and that's what the teachings teach us, is about our true nature. And if you study it, you realize that this is the way out of suffering. This is the way out of the human condition. This is the possibility that's available, but only if you practice meditation consistently enough to come out of the dream, to come out of the thought process. So take a look at it, I just described it. I said it's not a male or a female, right? It doesn't have a form. You can't see a beginning to it, which means there must not be an end either, right? It doesn't need anything, doesn't want anything, not going anywhere. It's just here. It's just here. That's all that can be said. It's this. It's just here. It's just this. And when you practice efficiently to understand that that which I speak of is you, one way to talk about this awareness is to say, if you look at this awareness right now and ask yourself, how far away from me is this awareness? How far away from you is the awareness? If you really look, and I don't mean think about it, but look, if you really look, you'll see there is no distance. There is no distance between you and this awareness. And the reason that that's the case is because you're it. You are the awareness. So now the possibility of living your life from this awareness means that this awareness has now got the ability to see things differently than the personality. This awareness is not afraid. This awareness is present. This awareness allows everything to be the way it is. If it allows everything to be the way it is, it means that you're no longer in conflict with life. It allows everything to be the way it is. It allows you to be the way you are. It allows your body to be the way it is. So that now you can stand in front of the mirror and not get sick. Because now you're looking at it and you say, oh, okay, that's the way it is. That's the body I got.